Hey 1050, this is Mrs. Bricky, and this is section 6.3, operations on matrices. For this section, there are only two topics, but I need to give you at least a little bit of background knowledge on matrices to get to those topics. So when we talk about a matrix, the order of the matrix is determined by the number of rows and the number of columns. So it has m rows and n columns, and we call it an m by n matrix. So this matrix has 1, 2, 3 rows and 1, 2 columns. So A is a 3 by 2 matrix. To add or subtract two matrices, the matrices have to have the same order, or in other words, they have to have the same size. And then you find that sum or difference by adding or subtracting the corresponding elements. So if I want to find A plus B, I just take each of the corresponding elements and add them together. So 3 plus -8 gives me -5. -5 plus 9 gives me 4, and just each corresponding element gets added to its, corresponding element in the other matrix until you've added them all together. -4 plus 0 is -4, and 2 plus 3 is 5. So A plus B would be this new matrix. So the matrices have to be the same size, and then the resulting sum is also that same size as well. It is also possible to multiply a matrix by a scalar number. So for example, if I want to know what is 3 times A, I would just multiply each element in A by the number 3. So that first element is going to be 3 times 3, which gives me 9. The next element is going to be 3 times -5, which is -15. 0 times 3 is 0. 1 times 3 is 3. -4 times 3 is -12. And 2 times 3 is 6. So this is 3A. So your topic today, or both of your topics today, involve multiplying matrices together. So multiplying a matrix by a scalar number is super easy, but multiplying a matrix by another matrix is a lot more complicated. First of all, if you want to multiply a matrix A by matrix B, the number of columns in matrix A has to be equal to the number of rows in matrix B. So in this case, A has 3 columns and B has 3 rows, so we could multiply those together. And then the answer is actually, in this case, going to be a 2 by 2 matrix. So if you see the matrices next to each other like this, A is 2 by 3, B is 3 by 2. These two numbers in the middle have to be the same, and the outer two numbers tell you how big your answer is going to be. So A times B is going to be a 2 by 2 matrix. Now, you're not going to have to be like checking these numbers or anything, because I have a great way of showing you how to multiply these together that naturally gives you the answer size. So I have matrix A over here. That's the one that came first in the product. And I have matrix B written up here, offset a bit. So if you write them this way so that, they're kind of diagonal from each other, your answer matrix is going to go here. So A has 2 rows and B has 2 columns. Our answer is going to be 2 by 2. So the reason that the number of columns of A has to match the number of rows in B is because the way that we figure out each of our elements in our answer is that we have to use the row of that answer and the column of the answer to get that number. And the way you do it is called a dot product. You start at the outside and work your way in. You do -1 times 2. And then you take the 10 and multiply it by the negative 3. And then you take the 8 and multiply it by the 1. And you add those together, and that's called a dot product. So we're multiplying the corresponding elements, and then we're adding each of those together. So it's negative 1 times 2. Oh my gosh, sorry, I wrote that as negative 2. Negative 1 times 2, 10 times 3, 8 times 1. Kind of like, working your way towards the middle. And so when we add that together, we get negative 2, negative 30, and positive 8. So that would be negative 24. I should get my calculator out and make sure. Sometimes my brain is so good at adding, and sometimes my brain is not. Negative 2 minus 30 plus 8. Negative 24. Okay, should trust myself. And so that was just the first element of our answer. So to get the next element of our answer, we have to think about, which row and which column are we using? Well, for the next element, maybe we switch to this element. Well, that just means we're going to use that first row still because our answer is in the first row, but we're going to use the second column for our dot product. That's not what I wanted to do. Okay. So thinking about that second dot product, I kind of it's hard to show you on a video because I usually almost use my fingers. So I kind of start with my fingers on those outside numbers and I kind of shift in as I'm thinking about it. If that makes sense. It's kind of easier to show you in person than on a video. So we're starting with those outer numbers and working our way in towards that answer. So we have negative 6 times 2. We have 5 times negative 3, and we have negative 2 times 1. So negative 12, negative 15, negative 2, that's negative 29. So we're halfway done with our multiplication. We are now switching to the bottom row. So if I'm finding this element of my matrix, that is in the first column and it's in the second row. So I'm going to use that first column of B and that second row of A to get my answer. So starting at the outside, we have negative 4 times negative 1. We have 7 times 10. And we have 0 times 8. Well, 0 times 8 is 0. So this is 74. And then we have one last column and last row combination to use. So switching to this spot, I'm now going to be using that second column to get my answer. And again, starting at the outside and working towards that answer location. So we're finding this spot. We have negative 6 times negative 4. We have 7 times 5. And we have 0 times negative 2. And that's going to give us 0. So we have positive 24 and positive 35. So that's 59. So that's the way that you'll get each of your answers. So your topic is either squaring or multiplying 2 by 2 matrices. So I've got some matrices right here. So A times B, you want to write the first matrix on the left, and then the second matrix in the product, you're going to write sort of offset above. 0, negative 2, 3, 5 is our matrix B. So as long as we can match up a dot product, that's a multiplication that can be done, and our answer is going to be a 2 by 2 matrix. So for that first element, 1 times 0, 2 times 3, that's going to be a 6. For our second element, 1 times negative 2, 2 times 5, That gives us 8. Okay, now I'm going to switch and get rid of those. Oh, that's okay. That was an 8. Okay, and now we're going to switch to the second row, first column. So this gives us 3 times 0 plus 4 times 3. So that's 12. And now switching to the second column, second row combo, that is going to give us our last element. So the 3 multiplies by the -2. Again, start outside and work your way in. Plus 4 times 5, that's -6 plus 20. That's 14. Okay, so when you're talking about multiplying matrices, the order matters. So if the product is BA, then matrix B would go on the left, and matrix A would go above. And unlike number multiplication, with numbers, 2 times 5 is the same as 5 times 2, but with matrices, A times B is not the same as B times A. They're, because this is a more complicated process for matrices, it's not associative, so you can't just switch the order. So thinking about that first element, that would be 0 times 1 plus -2 times 3, so that's -6. Our second element, we're going to use the second column of A, so that's 0 times 2 plus -2 times 4, so that's -8. Now going down to that second row and switching to the first column. So 1, let's see, the 3 will multiply by 1 and the 5 will multiply by 3. Again, start at the outside, those 2 times together, and work your way in towards where the answer goes. 3 plus 15 gives me 18. And then our last answer, or our last element, is going to use this column and the bottom row. So the 3 multiplies by the 2 this time, and the 5 multiplies by the 4. So 26. And so this would be our answer to this product. So just be careful. Remember that you're always using columns from that top matrix, and you're always using rows from that bottom matrix to get your answer. Okay, if you want to square a matrix, make sure you don't just square the elements. Squaring means times something by itself. So C squared means C times C. So if we're finding our first element, that's 1 times 1 plus 0 times 3. Again, I'm using this column and this row. 1 times 1, 0 times 3. So that's 1. Switching to the next column, 1 times 0. Oh, sorry. And 0 times -1. Well, if I add those together, I get 0. Switching now to first column, second row, that's 3 times 1 plus -1 times 3. Well, that happens to add up to 0. And our last position in our answer is going to use the bottom row and the second column, 3 times 0 plus -1 times -1, and that gives us a 1. So you get this matrix right here as our answer. You don't always get that when you square, so I'll show you A squared. 1, 2, 3, 4 multiplied by 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would be 1 plus 6, that's 7. This would be 2 plus 8, That's 10. That's funny. I did 2 plus 8. I wrote 8. I said 10. Okay, and then we get, switching to that second row, we get 1 times 3. That's 3 plus 3 times 4 is 12, 15. And then our last element, 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 4 times 4 is 16, and that's 22. So you can see you don't always get like those diagonal ones. That's just a coincidence. Okay, and there's one more topic. So your topic is going to be to multiply 2 by 2 matrices together. The last topic is a word problem topic. Matrices can be used to work on, or to almost like a spreadsheet to keep track of data. So we've got some salespeople at the same company, and they sell a bunch of school supplies, and they earn a commission of 30 cents per box of pencils, 90 cents per textbook, and $1.40 per desk. And this spreadsheet gives us our information for each of our salespeople. Well, we can represent that in a matrix. So Melissa is the first column, Keith is the second column, Lucy is the third column, and then we have pencils, books, and desks as our rows. Okay, so we have 3 parts on this. First of all, it asks you to find a matrix B whose entries are the bonuses. So we will put those into a matrix. Part B asks us to multiply matrix B by matrix A, and part C is going to ask us what was Keith's overall bonus. So when you're doing this, this is BA. You want to actually kind of start with part B because that is going to help guide you on how to answer part A. So for this one, it wants us to take our matrix B that we create and multiply it by matrix A. Well, that means we have to put B here, and matrix A is going to go up here. So I'm going to go ahead and write it like this for just a second. 430. And we have to come up with matrix B so that we can multiply this together. Well, B is only going to have 3 elements, right? Because we only have 3 bonuses. So Alex will have this like choice of sizes for you. We're either going to have to choose one of those 2 because we have 3 elements. This one's a fraction. We don't need that. 1 element, 2 elements is not enough. 4 is too many, and these ones are all, way too big. So we have to choose one of those 2 for B. Well, if you think about how we multiply matrices with dot products, B's columns has to match the number of rows of A. So what we are going to need for B is for it to be this size with 1 row and 3 columns. So we're going to choose that for B. So it's helpful to think about the product on part B before you choose your answer for part A. So for B, we're going to put the 30 cents for pencils as our first element, the 90 cents for the books as our second element, and $1.40 for the desks. And you can leave those zeros off on the end. So that's matrix B. So part A is done now, and now we can do the multiplication in part B with the matrix that we just created. And so our answer is just going to have 3 elements. So we're going to use this row every time, but we need to multiply it by each column. So our first element that goes right here, it's going to be 0.3 multiplied by 390 plus 0.9 multiplied by 590 plus 1.4 multiplied by 510. lost my calculator, so that's good news. So if you crunch those together, you are going to get, 1362. And then you would do that for the second element. But this time we're going to switch to multiplying by this second column. So 0.3 times 410 plus 0.9 times 600 plus 1.4 times 470. And when we do that, we get 1321. And then we want to switch to multiplying by that last column to get our answer. 0.3 times by 430, 0.9 times by 650, and 1.4 times by 460. And so when we do that, we get 1358. So you'll enter this as your answer on part B. And then it will ask you a follow-up question. It says, how much money in dollars was Keith's bonus overall? Well, if you remember back, Keith was our second column. And so this was Keith's bonus overall total. So this added up his bonus from pencils, his bonus from books, and his bonus from desks. So we would input the answer 1321 as Keith's bonus. Now, I set it up this way, and sometimes your topic will ask you to set it up this way, but you have to watch because our problem that we did as our example said BA right here. So I had A on the left, the right, and B was a row matrix. But some of them, when you're doing your topic, when you click next to get the next problem, it might switch that to AB. And if it switches it to AB, then you have your big old matrix with your 9 elements over here, and you need to create a B that can multiply with A on the left. So in that case, you need a column matrix with the 3 elements so that you can match them up. So you might have to choose this one for some of your problems. Just really pay attention to what it asks for on part B, because part B can guide you. All right, that is it. Hope you enjoyed doing these topics. Let me know if you get stuck or have questions. Thank you.